We are taught to worship the wealthy. We dissect their habits, emulate their morning routines, and chase their bank accounts. But no one talks about the psychological virus that infects a man when he achieves absolute financial power. Money solves problems. It creates monsters. 2,000 years ago, the richest man in the Roman Empire was not the emperor. It was Lucius Annaeus Seneca, a philosopher, statesman, and multi-billionaire by modern standards. He possessed villas, orchards, and endless streams of gold. Yet he spent his nights sleeping on a hard floor, eating plain bread, and warning humanity about the fatal trap of the wealthy mind. Today we peel back the curtain. This is not a guide on how to get rich. This is an anatomical dissection of what wealth does to the human psyche through the lens of ancient Stoicism. Welcome to the Psychology of Rich Men. Chapter 1. The Curse of Hedonic Adaptation. The greatest lie of human psychology is that happiness is a destination reached through acquisition. The mind of a rich man operates on a dangerous mechanism called hedonic adaptation. When a man makes his first million, the neurochemical spike of dopamine is intoxicating, but the brain is an adaptive machine. Within months, that million becomes the baseline. The luxury penthouse becomes just a room with walls. The hypercar becomes just a metal box that moves. The threshold shifts. To feel the same high, he must chase 10 million, then 50, then a billion. He enters a psychological hamster wheel where the speed increases, but the destination never changes. Seneca witnessed this exact madness in Rome's elite. He observed men who owned entire provinces yet wept because their neighbor acquired a slightly larger estate. Seneca wrote, "To wisdom, poverty is wealth, but to greed, wealth is poverty." When money removes all physical friction from life, it removes the very things that give human existence meaning: struggle, triumph, and contrast. Without hunger, food loses its flavor. Without effort, success loses its soul. The rich man's psychology becomes a desperate flight from boredom. To Chapter 2. The Paranoia of Possession. As a man's wealth grows, his world paradoxically shrinks. He enters the phase of the paranoia of possession. When you have nothing to lose. You sleep deeply. You trust freely. But when a man accumulates massive capital, a quiet, insidious anxiety takes root in his subconscious. He begins to view every human interaction through a lens of transaction. Does his wife love him or his lifestyle? Do his friends respect him or his influence? Do his business partners want partnership or a payout? Everyone has an angle. This psychological isolation forces the wealthy man into a fortress of solitude. He surrounds himself with yes-men, bodyguards, and non-disclosure agreements. He becomes a prisoner of his own success. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus, who began life as a slave, understood this better than any emperor. He noted that the master is often more enslaved than the servant, bound by the constant terror of losing his status. The rich man spends half his life acquiring things, and the second half panicking over how to protect them from a world that wants to tear them away. Intermission, the Stoic audit. Pause. Look at your own life right now. You are likely watching this because you desire wealth. There is no shame in that. Stoicism does not condemn money. It classifies it as a preferred indifferent. But ask yourself this brutal question before we move deeper. Are you seeking wealth to build freedom? Or are you seeking wealth to fill an emotional void that money cannot fix? If it is the latter, no amount of billions will ever be enough. Chapter 3. Intellectual Hubris and the God Complex. When a man conquers the financial marketplace, his brain misinterprets financial success as universal expertise. This is the psychological phenomenon of intellectual hubris, commonly known as the God complex. Because he was right about an investment, or because he successfully built a company, the rich man begins to believe he's right about everything. He speaks authoritatively on politics, philosophy, medicine, and human nature, even when he is profoundly uneducated in those fields. Success blinds. The ultimate Stoic emperor, Marcus Aurelius, ruled the Western world. He held absolute, unchecked power and wealth. Yet his private journal, the Meditations is a masterclass in fighting this exact psychological virus. He constantly reminded himself, "I am just a man. My blood is the same as the beggar's. My mind is subject to the same errors." When a rich man loses his humility, he loses his connection to reality. He becomes surrounded by a distortion field where no one corrects his mistakes. And that is precisely when the most catastrophic financial and personal collapses occur. Chapter 4. Voluntary Hardship, the Billionaire's Antidote. How do the rare, psychologically healthy rich men survive this onslaught of comfort and paranoia? They practice the ultimate Stoic antidote, voluntary hardship. Seneca gave this explicit advice to his wealthy friend, Lucilius. "Set aside a certain number of days, during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself the while, 'Is this the condition that I feared?'" Today, the most resilient leaders intentionally reintroduce friction into their lives. They fast for days. They take ice baths. They sleep on the floor. They go on silent retreats. They do this not out of masochism, but out of psychological warfare. By proving to their subconscious minds that they can survive and even thrive with absolutely nothing, they break the chains of fear. They take away money's power over their emotional state. Conclusion: true wealth versus financial wealth. We conclude this examination with a profound realization. The psychology of the rich man shows us that wealth is not a number in a bank account. It is a state of psychological sovereignty. If you have millions but require external validation, luxury assets, and constant applause to feel whole, you are not rich. You are a highly paid slave to your desires. True wealth, as defined by the Stoics, is measured by what you can live without. It is the man who can lose his fortune tomorrow and not lose an ounce of his character, his peace, or his dignity. Be the master, not the slave. Seek freedom. Seek discipline. Build a mind that cannot be bought and a soul that cannot be corrupted. That is the only wealth that matters. Thank you for watching.